tampered with.
Oh, yeah?
There's been some tampering.
Nobody was using it. So
is your mom podcasting while we're out?
Well, yeah, right. Somebody could have bumped it.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
It's
I don't think that's likely.
It's all good. I was just listening to Bobby Lee and Theo Vaughn on my way in.
Oh, God. So you're full of
We're
humor.
going to do our best Bobby Lee and Theo Vaughn podcast.
Dude, I haven't listened to it enough to be able to knock it off quite well.
Do you know Bobby Lee?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Bobby.
Who do you think's funnier, him or Theo?
I think Theo's autistic. I think Bobby's a little more authentically funny. But they're both funny, and they're very funny. Theo, anybody who can do a podcast by yourself and just talk, just blows my mind. I was like, how do you just sit there and talk? No guests, no nothing, because sometimes he does that. That blows my mind. Like, oh.
You got to be freaking talented, dude.
Well, but some of the stuff that he's talking about, too, it's like, where do you come up with this stuff?
I think his imagination is, like, overdeveloped.
I think you're ready for a bigger piece there, Sunshine.
Nice. Yep.
I'm going to go.
It'll go.
Well, the ear cut off. I'm all paranoid now.
No, we're good.
I don't know.
I'll open it up if I need to.
Yeah, I'll open that up.
Because we don't want to burn too hot, dog.
No, well, I don't know. It's pretty freaking chilly today. Yeah, you need to open that up.
I think it's good.
I think it's not. Well, it is good. White peach.
Yeah, I like these.
The old Costco energy drink. Did you say this is the Rocks company or something?
Yeah, he's got some association with it. Mm. Can you feel your muscles getting bigger as we're drinking?
Yeah, I'm jacked as well. Get out, man. Yeah, let's see. Think health.
You're looking jacked as fuck in that hoodie, dude.
Well, it's getting cold outside. It's hoodie time, baby.
Is this something like new SVA branded apparel up in here?
Well, so my buddy Brandon, y'all know Brandon, the guy who made the belt. He at one point was making some swag for his business, and he bought Carhartt hoodies and gave me one and like bought me an appropriate size. And it was the first time I'd ever put on a non-zip up hoodie that I would ever wear, because it actually was long enough in my torso. It didn't like feel really weird when you lift your arms up or anything. So then after that, I started going, well, man, maybe I should just make our swag out of that. You know, people in general tend to like Carhartt's hoodies anyway. And then I went on a website and found like everything in my size that I could. So I have like 15 different ones in different colors. We only have black ones on the website. But if there's a bunch of demand for different colors, I'd do other ones. But for now, it's just black with white writing. But
how did Carhartt become a slightly How did Carhartt become like a slightly hipster brand? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yellowstone.
Is that it?
I would guess. I mean, I don't
That's
remember.
Gotta be it.
I don't remember Carhartt being popular 10 years ago. Yellowstone started 5 years ago.
You have like all these, I would say, like city chicks wearing Carhartt, and yeah. Like, it's cool to own a Carhartt beanie right now for everyone.
Well, I think it has been for several years.
Yeah.
I think it's been 2-3 years on the beanies for sure. But if I had to guess, that makes the most sense because that's a Western show. There's a lot of Carhartt apparel in that, and it's very popular. And it's a great show. I've watched pretty much every episode.
Junkie?
I do like it. I'm not trying to pretend to be that person. You know, that's not like most people who get into Yellowstone.
Who's your favorite character?
Oh, Rip.
Rip?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Although, why am I drawing a blank? Beth makes the show, for sure. She's just crazy. And that's great. But Rip's my favorite character, for sure.
You don't keep up with that many shows, do you?
No, I don't. That's one of the ones I watch. There's a couple. I'm watching that painkiller documentary on Netflix right now about the Sackler family who did OxyContin. And
I just heard that talked about on a podcast.
I was on Rogan's. The director of it, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he's been an actor and director in Hollywood for a long time. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now, but he did it, and I love that they required them by law to put in that some of this has been dramatized and fictionalized or whatnot. So their way around that was there's 6 episodes of it, and they have someone who had a family member that was died from ODing on OxyContin to read that and then hold up a picture of their person. But this is not dramatized. This was my child, blah, 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 died at 19, miss him very much, all this other stuff. So it's like, yeah, you're making me say this, but I'm going to put a direct victim right in your face right after you make me say this by law, so you can't sue me.
I'm not up to date on that story, but
You're not? Mm-mm. So I'm not done with the series yet. There's still 2 episodes left, but from what I can understand, the Sackler family knew that they were selling an incredibly addictive opiate, denied it was addictive at all, pitched it to doctors to tell their people it was non-addictive, hired a bunch of blonde floozies to be their sales reps, and incentivized doctors and their sales reps to encourage people to take higher doses. Because of how they made money off of it, they could make a lot more money off of a higher dose being prescribed than a smaller dose, which was why people were getting so overly addicted and ODing, is because they were prescribing too much. It'd be like, it's heroin. I mean, that's basically what it boils down to. It's medicinal heroin. And if you were deliberately giving people too much heroin, like, yeah, it was pretty blatant. So it's a very interesting documentary. Like I said, I have 2 episodes left of it, but there's some evil people, man, like really evil.
And is this the same family that was like donating a whole bunch to art and stuff? So they were
to try to make themselves look better.
Yeah, it's like it's like trying to buy social offset or whatever.
Well, and they got that
they were
idea.
Making a bunch of money, but we're gonna be donors to museums and all these things that socially look good.
Yeah, and they did that because I don't remember the guy's first name, but Nobel, I think it's Arthur Nobel or something like that. The paper accidentally wrote a obituary on him. His brother had died, but they thought it was him, and it was all this merchant of death, Warmark, because he invented dynamite. So he decided at that point to create the Nobel Peace Prize. So he would be known for something that wasn't a direct correlation to inventing dynamite. So that's where the Nobel Peace Prize came from. And now nobody thinks of that guy as this horrific, merchant of death or what have you, that they just know the Nobel Peace Prize. So that's why they started doing all the arts and museums and putting their names on the front of things.
What a legacy cheat code.
Right? Yeah, just simply bypass that you're a bad person by doing good things before you die.
Yeah.
That's not an uncommon thing, honestly. So.
Yeah. That's called, some version of that's called being a kingmaker, where basically you're the person who doles out the award, and it's like, it's a hack for a few different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of internet companies get traction by like creating lists, and essentially by creating a list, they're the kingmaker, and then those lists get shared. People want to earn their way onto those kind of lists, and it's like, if you think about any award system, who's the founder of it, right? Like, where did it originate?
Yeah. Why does this award exist?
Yeah. Why does this award exist?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like this year we got to make like bow awards or something.
There you go.
Best bow 2023, best bow list. When did new bows launch?
So hunting bows are going to start launching really quickly. I already did that Matthews Title 38. They just sent me one of those. That was last week. I ran back from my hunting trip to film it. And that's got a crap ton of views already. It's like 33,000 views in a week. But I just got a bear today that I didn't know what it was, and I opened up the packing slip and it said 2024 preview. So I'm like, oh crap! Like, what the hell is this thing? So, and that rep's coming by tomorrow, but I don't know when. I think their launch is in early October. So between the first part of October and the end of November is when pretty much everybody launches their products.
Is bear manufactured here in the U.S.? Do you know?
The bows are. A lot of the
Parts
accessories aren't. I don't know if they even make any accessories at all in the U.S. anymore. But as far as I know, the bows are U.S. made. Every bow in the line. There might be a couple of little kid ones that aren't. Same with like diamond. Diamonds are all made in the U.S. other than 2 or 3 of the basic entry ones aren't. But in general, all bow manufacturers are still making pretty much all their bows in the United States. There's only a small percentage that aren't. So, because there's import duties and taxes because of the, I'm trying to remember what it's called, but there was a grant fund created that excise tax was for building ranges and things like that. So if it's made in the U.S., you have to pay, I think it's 11% or 13% excise tax that all goes towards funding shooting facilities and places to practice and things like that.
So if someone's shopping for a bow right now, should they buy 2023 bows or just give it like a month or 6 weeks and look at 2024 bows?
That's tricky.
It is. It's super tricky.
Typically,
it's confusing. The launch like confuses me because it's right around the time where if you wanted to hunt with a new bow, you could kind of get a 2024 bow and get it set up really quick, but that's not ideal.
if you were hunting late season, you could probably get away with it. If you're not going to get it by early season, and that depends on where our viewers that are listening or listeners are listening are from.
Hey, take a guess at our highest listening state. I'll give you 3 guesses, and I'll give you maybe a clue every time.
3 guesses, highest listening state. Well, obviously, I would assume maybe Washington because we're from Washington.
East of the Mississippi.
East of the Mississippi. You're kidding me.
No.
East of the Mississippi. Pennsylvania?
No.
You're supposed to give me a hint.
You're warm though. You're warm. I don't really have another great hint.
God, it's hard
because you're so warm.
It's hard to beat Pennsylvania just because of the
So many
number of
bow
bow
hunters,
hunters,
yeah.
right? So that would make sense.
It's a big East Coast state. The size of it.
Almost need to look at a map if I could. I could probably guess it.
Are you geographically challenged?
No, actually, I'm not. I remember we used to have to do geography in school, and I'd get like 100% on stuff. I'd look at a map and remember everything it was. But it's been a while since I've looked
There's
at a
only a
map of
couple
the
big
U.S.
states out east.
I know. I'm just trying to think. Like, North Carolina's pretty big.
Is that your guess?
Virginia's pretty big. North Carolina doesn't sound right, but sure, why not? North Carolina.
Nope. North. More north.
Well, you said 3. I've already guessed 3.
You guessed twice. You guessed Pennsylvania and North Carolina. Oh, and
No,
Washington.
I said Washington first just because we're from
so
Washington.
New York is
New
our-
York?
Yeah.
That was what I was going to guess. Damn it. It's like, but New York, how are we like, wow. Well, but that's a high population.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of listeners that guess out east, so that's awesome.
So more.
That's something to be wary of.
New York is number 1.
That's our number 1, baby. The Big
That is
Apple.
Wild.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense at all. to me.
I would have guessed Pennsylvania too. I know Pennsylvania's got like a stronghold of bow hunters.
Yeah, it's a big state for that. That's why Lancaster's based there, because there's such a large population of bow hunters originally. At least I'd assume. But
Yeah. What were we saying right before that?
new products launch up until November, and then you just told me, do you buy a bow now or do you wait?
Yeah.
And what I was going to say is, over the last 3 years in general, every year the new flagship bow is more expensive than last year's flagship bow. Shops this time of year do tend to maybe do sales and mark down products that they still have. So you might actually get a deal while it's still a current production bow. Most of the bow manufacturers lift their minimum this time of year, so you can sell it less if you're overstocked or that kind of thing. So there's a good opportunity there. And I will say, in general, there's not usually drastic change every year. So buying a 2023 versus a 2024 might not be a big difference.
And I would say if you're price sensitive, for sure buy 2023 because you're likely going to get a better deal. And also,
What's likely gonna
the
be cheaper
advancement in
than
technology is, it's incremental, not exponential at this point, unless somebody does something that we've never seen or heard of or shakes the industry.
Yeah, in general, the bows really haven't been getting faster. They've been, getting a little more dead, a little smoother,
A little more customizable.
maybe a little more quieter,
Easier to tune.
extra features like if you're big into wanting like Picatinny fronts or bridge lock fronts and Picatinny mounts in the rear or things like that, and your bow manufacturer of choice doesn't offer that, I would probably wait because that's very easy to change for a bow manufacturer. So if they haven't done that, if they haven't innovated in that way, I would expect it to innovate this year or next year if they haven't done it. A lot of them have done it. It's just it's been embraced by the big manufacturers on front mount or rear mount. Bowtech still hasn't done a front mount, but they did a rear mount last year on several of the bows. I'll be really, really shocked if they don't do some kind of front mount on them. But almost every major manufacturer already does it. So small manufacturers will always follow suit to what big manufacturers do because big manufacturers create standards in the industry. So
Yeah,
and
they're more leading that tech curve, right?
yeah, and the interesting part was Matthews going bridge lock. They're the only one that's done that. Like every other bow manufacturer that's gotten on board with something, they've all done the Picatinny.
Well, Picatinny is not. It's probably not patentable, right?
Well, Hoyt invented it. I don't know if invented mounting a sight that way. So I don't know if they tried to patent it or if they're maybe willing to issue it. I know Matthews with their bridge lock technologies, they always patent that stuff. Like they patent that stabilizer. Like I didn't realize.
That's kind of in the direction they're going. Is we're going to make things that are proprietary and kind of locked up.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's smart business. So it wouldn't shock me if
it's smart
nobody
business
else
if it's
does
the best technology.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me if nobody else tries to do that or tries to get around it some
But
way.
there's no competitive advantage going bridge lock versus Picatinny.
Well, bridge lock does offer you the ability to change how far away your sight is. You know, maybe you want to change your sight picture.
Yeah, that's true.
And maybe you want to run your sight out, but be able to move it in while it's in a case. You know, if you're that guy and you want that sort of setup, and it still stays on your bow, which is pretty neat, and it does allow it to close. But so does bridge lock, or so does Picatinny. And everybody's making both now. Like any sight manufacturer that's worth their salt is making both. So you can have your own way all you want. Like every sight manufacturer redid their dovetail within 6 months of Matthews doing that. Like nobody made one that didn't, that had a jog in it or an appropriate left to right windage change so they could fit it and mount it up correctly and work. So then that was an easy change. Doing the Picatinny was a bigger deal. Like you had to remake your rear of your sight on most sights. But now I don't know of a sight manufacturer that isn't doing that. At least off the top of my head, I could be missing one.
I hear Elite's name come up more and more often. What do you think about their trajectory and what they got going on?
So Elite is an interesting one. I think they're way more popular on the East Coast.
I think Elite and Athens are another one that's kind of East Coast stronghold.
So Athens is, from what I understand, I could be wrong, so please don't quote me on this, but I believe Athens was some.
Yeah, I already did it.
Yeah. I believe Athens was some disgruntled Elite employees that went on their own. So if you
Platform seems similar.
If it looks like an older Elite, like if you look at their design, like if you look at an Elite 3 years ago, it looks a lot like that. So Elite's part of Outdoor Group, and Outdoor Group's a pretty big conglomerate. They own Slick Trick. They just came out with new arrows. Altura, I actually have some. I hadn't tested them yet. Let me get that.
Yeah, I've seen their marketing come up. Yeah, I've seen their marketing come up a little bit in my Instagram feed. They've targeted
this was
me.
Completely accidental that we brought this up, but
yeah,
Ultra, ALTRA. I haven't tested them yet because they didn't send me the right straightness tolerance to compare for what I always compare arrows at, but we'll do those soon. But they just started that company. They also have
God, everyone wants to
Scott Archery, releases, and CBE. CBE sights.
Scott releases one of the kind of stronghold releases that makes its way back over time and time again is a Scott Longhorn.
Yeah,
I think Levi may or may not shoot a Scott Longhorn from time to time.
it's been around forever.
Yeah,
It's a good design.
yeah.
So, but there's so many things that are just like that. But releases are very finicky in that way, like people, what they like. But in any event, that company's a lot bigger. It's been around a lot longer. It's probably got more money behind it. I think.
I know it's super conglomerate. Do you know who the owner, or is there owner group, or?
It's Outdoor Group.
Yeah.
Is what it's called. So I don't know personally what that leads to.
Yeah.
I know the people that I deal with over there, and I deal with the CEO, and I have sales reps and that sort of things. But from what I understand, Athens is an up and coming company. I don't know how their growth is in this last year, and not to bag on them, but it was the worst margin I've ever seen on a bow. So for myself, it's hard to justify, especially when you have 7 different brands or 8 different brands in your shop to bring in another one that is less known. That's probably not going to have the same demand as some of the other ones that I make less money on at the same time. It's like you got to be offering something.
Less
in my
known,
scenario.
less demand, less
Well,
margin.
I think Athens is one of those companies that is appealing to places that can't get Hoyt or Matthews or Bowtech, etc. You'll see that a lot. Like there'll be a couple of niche companies that carve out a spot in the market, and it's usually dictated by this shop can't get this brand, so they're adding that one, that sort of thing. Which when I see the dealers come up carrying Athens, it's usually because they can't get other brands, so they're trying to find some angle to get customers into their store, which isn't a bad thing. And I don't think they make a bad product, although they didn't want to send me one to review. They wanted me to be a dealer and buy 10 or something in order to do it, and I'm like, okay, well, no.
Yeah.
If your margin's like what this is, and there's not a better
Well,
path
plus
somewhere, it doesn't make sense.
If you want to grow your reach, I mean,
Yeah.
a little proof of concept, get the bow in somebody's hands, let them sell themselves on it if you want to stand behind it,
They do also have an accessory line that looked pretty promising, but I didn't bring them in because I wasn't carrying the bows, but I might.
Yeah.
And I could, they wanted me to carry them, but I didn't. I was like, this margin's not good. Like it's just, you're not making enough money for the. I mean, if you look at what time goes into building someone a bow, right? So you put all the equipment on. If you're doing it correctly, figure there's a 50-50 chance you're reshimming the bow. So you're disassembling the axle assembly and moving spacers around to square up the wheels to try to straighten them. Or if it's yokes, you're twisting yokes. You're probably manipulating the timing depending on whose strings are on it and how long it's been sitting on the wall. You may have to time it. You got to install a rest. You got to install a sight. You got to level the sight. You got to adjust the draw length to the customer. You got to adjust the let off to what the customer wants. You have to install a string loop. You have to tie a peep to the customer after they've drawn it back. You have to tune it yourself, and then you put it in the customer's hands and make sure it shoots the same for them. And then if it doesn't, you're gonna have to work through that a little bit. I mean, the average, new bow build to a customer is 2 hours. That's manpower and payroll for 2 hours before they ever leave the building. If your margin on your bow sucks, that's not good. Like it's really not. Like you've eaten up. If you're paying a well-functioning employee, like someone who shows up to work, has a drive to learn, has knowledge, or has gained knowledge over time, right? You're paying them a decent, livable wage, right, to keep them around. And I got to pay 2, possibly 3 hours of that person's time. I mean, in this state, with employment tax and whatnot, that might be $100. Well, if margin's not great on a bow and the bow's $1,000, that might leave $100-ish, maybe a little more on the table to pay your overhead and servicing that product in the future. That's crazy. Like you'll go broke if you did that and just did that, your entire business model, you are probably going to end up broke.
Yeah.
Because you also have to pay those employees to be there when no one's there. It's not just when a customer walks in and they deal that.
That's not the way it is. You don't just ship an employee.
Yeah, don't just say, "Oh, we just turn the employee wage on." Okay, go help this guy. Oh, okay, you're done. Turn it off. Sit there. I don't have to pay you. I mean,
you still clock in a customer.
There's still costs, man. I mean, and you can't. It's out of all the general sporting goods stuff I ever did, because originally I worked in a general sporting goods store. Right, it was by far the most labor intensive. Like rifles, muzzleloaders, camping gear, fishing, fly fishing, regular fishing, footwear, apparel, you name it. Nothing took as much time as putting a bow together. Like not even close. Yet the margins were like the same.
Yeah, bows are finicky,
like this is stupid. Like why? I mean, where the heck does this come from? At some point, if they keep cutting the margin like they have been and making things tighter and tighter and tighter, not letting you make as much percentage on your dollar, you're going to have to start charging labor on new sales. You're going to have to. You're not going to have a choice. Like you're like, if I can only make $300 on this transaction and it's got 2 to 3 hours of manpower in it and I have to service those things after the fact, I will go broke. Like we're going to see a day probably, because everything's so price driven, where there's a labor charge for everything, whether you brought it in and asked me to do it, which we already do that, or if you bought it new and asked me to do it, you're still going to pay to have it put on. Like we're going to get to that point on shops that survive if they keep doing what they're doing, which we'll see what happens, but not to spin it out of control. In any event, where do we start from? Oh, yeah. Do you buy a new bow now or do you wait? I guess it depends on if you want to use it in November or not.
Yeah.
If you want to use it in November, Odds are really good. Let's say you're not shopping at my store. Let's say you're shopping in the average store. You're not getting that bow in November or December. It's not happening. In general, you might randomly happen to get one, like the shop put in a pre-order for 10 and they haven't sold them all yet when that first one comes in. Because by the time that shop goes to place their next order, especially if it's Matthews because they're popular and there's a lot of volume involved and the orders come in really quick. So you can go from being able to get a bow in 3 weeks to turning into 3 months in like a week. So if that shop doesn't reorder quick enough, they're going to end up getting bows in January or February for people who wanted to buy them in November. So it's really difficult to expect to get the newest model right away. And normally does not happen. Now, we've, for the last 5 years, have kind of done ridiculous pre-orders. Like I'll pre-order half a year's worth of inventory before I even know what it is to make sure I have product when it comes out. And most shops aren't willing to take that risk. Like if they order the product and they hate it, they may not have the buying power to try to deal with the manufacturer to resolve the things they don't like. Because a lot of them will let you pre-order the bows, but you won't know what they are. Like it's almost blind. You usually get like 3 statistics. Like they'll tell you what the axle to axle is, what the brace height is, and what the physical weight is, or what the speed is, or something like that. That's it. You haven't drawn one back. You haven't fired it. You don't know what it looks like. You know what color it is. The thing could be fucking pink. You just don't know. Right? You don't know. And you have to say, yeah, okay, I'll take 100. Like when Matthews comes calling for me on probably around October 15th, I'll say, yeah, I'll take 200. Mix it up. You know what sells out here? Right? You know what my numbers have been over the past 5 years for this size or that size or whatnot. So I know you can't tell me a lot, but you know what it is. So give me 200 bows based off of what I typically sell well and adjust it accordingly. Is it, it's like, let's say it's 2 axle to axle bows. Which size would I traditionally sell more of? Sell me more of that, like 60-40 or 65-35% in poundages or colors, and give me, 5%, 10% left-handed, the rest of it right-handed. And with Matthews, they tend to give the big accounts the ability to do that. Like anybody can do a pre-order, but a lot of times a shop, if they're doing $200,000, $400,000, $600,000 total sales in a year, they're not going to buy 50 bows that they haven't seen. Like they have no idea what they are.
So moral of the story,
I'm dumb enough to do it,
is
but
buy
most people aren't.
Buy a 2023 bow.
Buy a 2023 bow if you want to actually use it this year.
Yeah.
If you're going to wait till next year to use it, then yeah, I would probably go ahead and wait, because there'll still be some leftover bows come mid-November. Because typically, sometimes bow manufacturers make it into December, but in general, they don't. In general, by November 17th, November 20th, you know what they're making. And the good brands have usually sent a bow to the store already. Like they have one in most instances. And some stores are stupid enough to sell that bow right out of the gate. Like, dude, how are you going to show anybody a bow or let them test fire?
No,
I'll sell off one bow. Also, back in the day when I didn't get the bows, because when I wasn't doing the volume that I'm doing now, I wouldn't order until I saw it. I was like, that bow's going to show up in my store the day it's released. I will shoot it, I will test fire it, I will play with it, and I will call you and I'll give you an order. Well, now you can't get away with that at all. Like you won't. If you wait till then to try to order a bow, it's going to be 3 months before you see it in general. And most of them that have any kind of volume to them are doing it that way. So, but yeah, if you want to be able to use it this year, buy this year's bow, even though new bows are coming out. If you don't care about that, then go ahead and wait till the end of November to where you can see them, because there's still going to be, there's still going to be leftover bows that are probably marked down. So you're still going to be able to probably get a deal depending on your shop and how they do business. But you'll have the opportunity to at least see what the new stuff is to know if it's really worthwhile or not to you.
How would you describe the difference? I was just thinking about this because I shot Matthews the last couple of years, and I've shot Hoyt and Bowtech also, Hoyt mostly this year. But how would you describe the difference between a draw cycle between a Matthews and a Hoyt?
So I hate to make that statement based off myself.
Yeah.
I like to take the example of the customers.
Yes, the people that
come
see.
in, the people I see. Because I'm going to feel a certain way about a particular draw cycle based off of what I'm used to, right? But if I take the average person who comes in the store, the majority of people, if we're just talking Hoyt or Matthews, typically think the Hoyt pulls easier. Is a little smoother. Matthews is a little bit more on the front end, a little less on the back end. But in general, that tends to be the average. So that's the number one you get. And then the number two you get comparing those two. Usually the customer feels like the Matthews feels better on the shot.
Does Matthews, you ever see someone shooting a Matthews and they get that micro jitter? That little wobble forward?
I've seen somebody shoot and get that little jitter with every type of bow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's more common with a Matthews?
No, I don't.
I was just wondering
I think you see more Matthews in circulation, so it probably appears that way. It's probably more relevant to you because you see more Matthews bows because there's just more of them in there. You know, they're 40% of the market. You're going to see more of them around. And I think if you had to point that at Matthews, you'd probably point it at the fact that they measure a little long. So if you say you're a 28-inch draw length and you know that's what you are, and you go in and buy a Matthews, it's probably going to be a little bit on the long side. It's going to be like 28 3/8, something like that, or at least in the past couple of years. And that jitter usually comes from it being too long. So if you hand somebody a bow that's a little too long, it's going to be more prone to look that way. Now, that being said, almost every bow manufacturer I've checked has been long. And we're adding a new feature to our test this year. We are measuring physical draw length. So when you see a bow review from me, as soon as the new hunting bows start coming out, I will give you an actual AMO measurement of the draw length at 30 inches, and it measures out at this. So a little added little plus for you. We're going to do that, and we're going to do 3 different weights of arrows. So you can get the IBO speed rated, what they're, basing what they're advertising off of you, what a 450 grain arrow does, and what a 550 grain arrow does, to help you make a little bit more decisions. I was trying to figure out what to add.
I like that
this year. I want to add a little more functional things that you're going to care about. And at your behest, I still haven't figured out exactly how I'm going to categorize it, but we're going to give them a number.
Ooh.
When it's done, we're going to rank the bow and give it a number.
Nice.
I haven't figured out how elaborate that number is going to be, but we'll see.
One thing that's become
I got a couple weeks to figure it out.
One thing that's become apparent to me is longer axle-to-axle bows generally hold better, right? Generically speaking.
Generally, yes.
There's a little more weight down the center line, and they hold a little better.
Mm-hmm.
But string angle is like a thing that makes a bow more forgiving. Is that what you would call it?
I don't think so. I think that it's something that puts your head in a more relaxed position.
Okay.
So it doesn't compress your head position. And the problem with compressing your head position is if you just stop, close your eyes, and open your eyes, your head's going to be up higher because you're naturally going to want to do this.
You want to shoot from where you would kind of like be naturally oriented, right?
Yes, exactly. That's what you're going for. And with that shorter angle, that shorter axle to axle, you're going to end up in an awkward position in general. Not always. Everyone's face structure is different. Everybody's size of their beak's different. The distance of where your ear is and your eye is and all that. That's different on everybody. So everybody's anchor is going to be different. But in general, shorter axle to axle bows have more of an awkwardy head position to them. And as you're trying to pull through the shot, your head will have a tendency to lift up. So you'll start coming out of your peep in an upward motion. So you'll end up hitting higher.
Does it tend to shorten draw length a little bit?
A little bit.
Or can it? Because that's what I felt when I was, and I get this mainly from doing that Bear versus Hoyt shooting. I shot those side by side, and I felt myself like I really had to lean into the string. And then when I watched the video, I was like, wow, the string angle was so narrow on the Bear.
Yeah.
That's
what you're getting.
Yeah.
That's why it feels awkward. That's why.
And I was kind of holding off the back of my jaw a little. Like,
you'll commonly get somebody shoot a different draw length on a shorter axle to axle bow than a longer axle to axle bow because they're trying to mimic their head position. Mm-hmm. And your shorter stuff, you end up running your hand back farther, so the string's up a little more and your head's up a little more, which is much more inaccurate. So that's part of why I tend to push slightly longer bows. At the end of the day, I want you to be as accurate as possible, be able to shoot consistently. These shorter axle to axle bows.
If you can hit a pie plate at 20 yards, you're good.
Depends on what you're doing. For a lot of people, that's fine. And it's more than adequate.
Go string up that pie plate, see if you can smack it at 20. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, well, that's the lungs, right? That's all I'm trying to do is hit the lungs.
Get your finger warmed up, ready for the shot.
Get the little, get your reps in. Boom!
Dude, when you see someone draw their bow and they're in this position right here.
Yeah, they're ready to go.
That is the ready position, dude. That is like the position of fate right there.
Punch that trigger like it owes me money.
That thing's just ready to rip, dude.
Yeah. Nothing's funnier than watching the person's finger do this. You're like, oh my God, you've got it bad.
Yeah.
Oh man. And it's not that hard to break yourself of it. You just have to make a decision.
Well, yeah.
But it requires commitment.
I always think that one to me is a strange one, because even if a person shot their 22 and they were trained shooting a 22 rifle, I mean, you're always taught to get your finger on the trigger, feel the trigger, and then squeeze.
Well, that's not, I mean, yes, I agree. But the reason that you see such a struggle with it with archery over everything else is because they're not used to their sight picture moving. So when you give yourself a rifle and a scope and a bipod or a bag, or you put it on a pack, it's not really moving. It is, but it's moving at such a microbial, insignificant amount. You're not like swinging past the target and trying to hit it. With a bow and arrow, for most people, they're moving. And I mean, it's literally moving across the middle, moving across the middle, moving across the middle. And mentally, that's hard. Like, your brain wants that to go off when it's in the middle. And if it sees it moving across it, it's going to try to time it to where it goes off when it's in the middle. That's what your brain's going to want to do. And you have to trust the float, realize that that's in the middle 95% of the time, even though it's moving around. And if you can just relax and accept that, it moves half as much or less.
Is there a typical float pattern for most people? Like, does the pin float horizontally mostly or vertically mostly?
I've always been told it's a sideways, it's a figure eight on its side.
That's exactly what my pin does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In general.
It just side, it's not a lot of vertical float. It's the lateral.
Yeah.
And then, if it starts dragging, it'll sag down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that lateral figure eight.
Yeah. That's what most people's should look like in general.
Yeah. And that brings up a good point, because this 10-degree down thing is something you've kind of advocated for a while. Or I would say we set up more bows than not with the 10-degree down on it.
Yeah.
What does that do? What is that doing?
Well, I had Michael explain his theory on it, which I thought was pretty interesting.
What was his theory?
I always was under the impression that it made it do this instead of the full swoop up, because the weight's tipping forward.
So you thought it made it a little more horizontal?
Yeah, and it didn't loop. It like kind of just drooped back and forth a little bit. He thinks it, because it moves the weight farther below your hand, it forces the bow to tip forward more and sit more. At least that's kind of how he explained it the other day. And I was like, that might be some validity to that. But all I know is whenever I've used it, it seems to move less and in a more predictable fashion without the up and down movement. At least that's just been me.
Yeah, I like it. I like it, but I haven't really tested them side by side. So,
Well, maybe you should.
yeah, maybe I should.
That sounds like a YouTube video, Tim.
Oh,
There you go.
maybe.
Next week, have fun.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a difficult one to really see functionally. You'd almost have to like shoot scores for a month and then shoot scores for a month the other way and take the average of it, I would think.
What's a typical weight dispersion on front bar, back bar? So if, say, a person's running 10 ounces up front, where would the starting point be on the back bar?
Well, I've always said it's 3 to 1. But
3 on the front to 1 on the back?
No. 3 on the back.
3 on the back to 1 on the front.
But that has a lot of variables. It's like, how long is your front stabilizer? How long is your back stabilizer? How much are you pushing the back stabilizer back as opposed to out to the side? That all varies it a lot. But a typical starting point is you would put 3 times as much on the back as you would on the front. And then just keep moving it and shifting it until the sight picture looks the way you want it to. But, some people have crap loads of weight on there. Like, it scares me. Like, I've shot some bows with, 15 ounces in the front and like 50 ounces in the back. And my shoulder wants to come out when it goes off. It's like, whoa, God. Because it's just so darn heavy. But that seems like an awful lot to me. Yeah, stabilizers are interesting in how they function, but I've always tried to run 3 times as long in the front as it is in the side and 3 times as much weight in the back as it is in the front. And for the most part, that's really done well for me over time. But, it's worth playing with no matter what. There's always going to be a setup that sits better for you and points better for you. But you also have to get to the point that you can tell what your sight picture is doing. And it's not just your movement. And a large percentage of people can't. So you'll play with it and mess with it, and it'll feel better for a day, but then it doesn't feel better the next day.
Or shoot some kind of standardized format, like a Vegas or that.
Yeah, score a round. Score 2 or 3 rounds with
Yeah.
it, and then move it, and then score 2 or 3 rounds with it. But that's all how much you're willing to work at it. A lot of people aren't willing to work at it that much.
Well, that's one thing I thought that was just, I find that it's just taken a while to dial in is what is the right amount of weight, front, back, side. It just seems like it's taken a while, honestly, surprisingly a while. Like there's still work to be done on it.
Yeah, a lot of times when you finally get your perfect setup on a bow, and then when you try a new bow, a lot of times you'll start there, and so you're closer. Like you already kind of have a bit of a method of what's going to make this thing sit, and how much I need to add, and where it needs to be, and then you vary it a little bit because every bow's going to have a little bit different hand pressure and cause you to point and pull just a little different. But once you figure out what really works for you, at least you've saved yourself probably 80% of the work. But it's a lot of work. Like I'll be honest, in the last 8 years, I haven't done much with weight because I know I don't have the time to dick with it and really give it its due diligence to get it ideal for me. So I just run roughly what's felt good for the most part and throw it on there and kind of just try to ignore it because I don't have the time. I'm not going to shoot 3 scored ends a day every day to try to do that.
This is where you can get into the weeds pretty deep.
Yeah,
and your return on your time is probably pretty low, honestly, unless you're scratching to be really good, right?
Yeah, and I know I don't have that time in my life. You know, I was kind of like, what Dudley was saying is there's a point where you just can't. When I was talking to him, he's like, you have to commit a certain amount of time of what it takes to be able to be competitive and do it. Doesn't mean you can't still do it. It's just that better be all you're doing.
That's me with golf. As I got to a point where I realized, like, if I want to get better, it's a whole bunch more time just to scratch your way up a little bit.
Yeah,
you know?
You've got to fully commit it. I'm going to be a golfer.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to have a job and play golf. What's it going to be? And I'm not going to be a professional target archer.
Yeah.
I'm just not. So I try to spend as little time getting a bow set for target and just try to make it functional and make it good and then go shoot it and have fun.
Yeah, you're a professional tack archer now. That's what you are.
Isn't that
Have you been beat at tack yet?
Have I been beat at tack yet? No.
Oh, well, what's going to happen in 2024? That's my bold prediction for 2024.
Adorable. You're adorable.
2024, Josh Jones goes down.
I want to say the only way that I was going to get beaten by you guys was if you drugged me.
Oh, there's going to be like, there'll be more than just shooting going on to get the win. There'll be like baiting Josh,
Tanya Harding
a bad
on me,
situation,
blow up my knee.
Yeah, there'll be maybe many IPAs the night before.
Oh, I've gotten pretty adjusted to that now.
Oh yeah.
So that won't matter.
Yeah.
A guy could have a really bad day. I mean, it's possible. A guy could have a mechanical failure.
Yeah.
That's possible. But
That's probably more likely.
I've also had mechanical failures during that and still won. So, but the last one we didn't even score. So, which, I don't know. I would think people want to know that.
Yeah. I mean, I think if no other score, who lost the most carbon?
We need to put some wood in there, huh? Yeah, another. Oh, no, don't put the baby in there. Here, get that in there and leave the damper open. See if you can get that to go. This is the first fire of our season here, and I was kind of looking forward to it. I wanted to start a fire when I got up here because I got here about 15 more minutes before you did, and I was like, God, it's freaking cold in here. You can use that. That right there tends to do a really good job for that. Perfect. It's just the right amount of airflow. Boom, boom. Oh, look at that. Combustion. No. Let it go for a minute. That's a big piece.
It'll grab. Say my first. I grew up with a wood fire.
It'll grab. Dude, I've had a wood fire almost my whole life. Well,
and you have a 50% wood fire start ratio right now.
It's wet firewood, dude. It's bad. It's bad wood. All this stuff's really dry now. It's been sitting out here all year.
Yeah.
So.
This is the Fireside chat.
Yeah. It's nice to have an actual fire going again.
That's what we had a whole fire the whole time.
Yeah, that's right. Synthetic fire. It's just as good, right?
AI.
So are we going to talk about what our commie state's doing or what?
Yeah. So you kind of debriefed a little bit. So this is a talking point you brought up. Give us a little summary on what's going on.
So I have tended to always be a long-term thinker. I try to look at the pictures of what's happening in our industry and in our environment and kind of analyze why and where's it going. I've always had that. I don't know why I've always had that, but I've always had that. Like, there's a reason that I had a online store and whatnot where most shops didn't. There's a reason that I went directions that I went and planned things the way I did against what a lot of people told me to do, because I saw what was coming and it didn't feel right, and I felt like I needed to do this or I was going to be in trouble. And for a long time, I've been saying that our state is going to try to eliminate hunting. I felt it for a while. Rules that they've made, decisions they've made against scientific evidence that they themselves have gotten, have made me really nervous. And I'm seeing the next big step being proposed for this next year. Somebody, I want to say Forrest, sent it to me while I was up hunting, actually. I didn't even know about it. It was in Go Hunt.
Go Hunt did a full article on it.
Go Hunt did a full article on it that our state was proposing to outlaw predator hunting. Now, if you remember some of the discussions we've had early on this podcast, is I would reprimand you for not predator hunting. Because if you want to have game, you have to kill predators, because predators eat game. Now, what do you think is going to happen if you can't hunt a predator anymore? All game is going to be gone in 3 to 5 years. How much game do you find in California? Because you can't hunt a predator in California.
The balance will swing out of whack.
Oh, heavily. Like, there is terrible, terrible opportunity in California now because of that. If you have to point it at something, that's what you would point it at, because they outlawed bear hunting, they outlawed mountain lion hunting. I don't even think you can kill a coyote in California. And the Game Commission, appointed by Governor Jay Inslee this year, on his way out of office because he's not running again, thinks that this is a really great idea, that they're going to go away from the North American game model and allow predators to manage our game population. Now, whether they say that's what they're doing or not, that's the only reason you do that, is you stop hunting predators and let predators hunt the game, and then hunters don't need to hunt anymore. The other thing that's going on that initiative this year is to make elk hunting in Washington draw only. Can't buy an elk tag over the counter anymore as a resident. I don't know how many people are aware of that and how many people are listening, and I really hope that there's a decent amount of people in this state listening. On October 27th, I believe, in Olympia, you can go talk about it. You can go express your opinion to the Game Commission.
And doesn't that correlate with like an opening day of season or something?
I want to say blacktail rifles open then. Like, that's typically for rifle hunters a pretty good time to be hunting.
Yeah.
If I remember right. Whether they did that on purpose or not, I don't know, but it would sure seem that way for people who want to make a decision to eliminate hunting, which is a path down that step, a step down that path, that you would probably plan it when it would be inconvenient for people who are into hunting to show up. I believe this was first brought up in August, because there was a meeting in August, and the turnout for the voicing your opinion on it was 50-50. It was 50% anti-hunting and 50% hunting. So if they can show that presentation that, well, half of the people don't want it, we're doing the right thing. You're reinforcing what they already want to do. So the only prayer I think we have is if a crap ton of people in this state show up and speak out against it. Now, we may not even have a prayer even in that.
And that will get it offer on the ballot?
No, this isn't a ballot, all right? So the Game Commission gets to decide whatever they want. I don't think they have to vote on it.
Okay, so this is the Commission just makes a decision based on...
The Game Commission makes whatever decision they feel is best for the state. And the governor gets to appoint all 6 of those people. Those people decide what they want. So, please, if you have the opportunity to go, you have to schedule ahead of time that you want to speak. You have to fill out a form or something online and say you want to speak. I will be personally in Minnesota on a hunt during that, or I would drive over there. It's like 6 hours. I'd pay for a hotel, whatever, and speak, because I know where this goes, and it scares the shit out of me. And not just for my own financial well-being as a business owner that largely is based off of hunting in this state. I sell way more stuff online. I can operate here without hunting in this state. It would just break my heart to know it was gone. And it would break my heart to know it was gone because we have an opportunity to do something about it. And if we don't stand up and speak, we're not going to have an opportunity. Once they eliminate predator hunting, they will not bring it back. I mean, They eliminated bear baiting and hound hunting for bears when I was a teenager. And the bear population in the state is out of control already. Like, you can shoot 2 bears on the east side and 1 on the west side, I think, if I remember right. And they still won't let you use bait or hounds, the 2 most effective methods to hunt bear, but they'll let you shoot 3 of them. So even though they realize scientifically that you need more effective methods to hunt bears, they're not going to change it. If they get it passed, you'll never be able to shoot a predator again in this state. And they'll actually have to pay people to come in and manage them, because they're going to run into problems. They're going to run into spots where predators are interacting with people's pets, things like that, because they're going to starve eventually. It's already kind of pushing it with the introduction of wolves into our system. But please, if you ever do something for me, ever, please go speak at that. I contemplated canceling my hunt to go talk at it, but I mean, I can't do it. But if I had anything else in there, I would absolutely be there. So please, people, if you have that opportunity, go say something about how you feel about it and how you think about it. Because if they don't have a massive amount of people show up against it, it's going through no matter what. And they might push it through anyway because they've made decisions that don't necessarily correlate with what the public thinks. But at least you got an opportunity to say something about it. So please, people, please do something about it.
Yeah, that stuff's important, man. Hunting is part of our heritage. It's very important. And it's part of a natural balance that also supports the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right? Every hunter wants things to be in harmony. You don't want too many of one and not the other.
Yeah.
Everything can work in harmony, and the money can go back to support the conservation of the species.
For sure.
Which is why the North American model's been so awesome.
Yeah. And not to be too much of a conspiracy theorist-y person, but I've been told that Oregon's trying to do the same thing and Colorado's talking about doing it. And it's what California already does.
But here,
now, hold on.
Go ahead.
Now, all those states have one very similar thing in common. It's that they tend to vote blue. And my personal belief has always been, and this is for like over 20 years, is that the purpose of doing this is to eliminate hunting so they can take away your guns. Because if you can't go hunting, you don't need the firearm. Right now, you still have an argument as to why you need the firearm, a relatively civil argument most people don't understand. Well, I like to hunt, so I still need access to guns. Makes sense. If you can't hunt, don't need the guns. So be aware. Maybe you feel passionately about it, maybe you don't. But if you care about your Second Amendment rights, that's the path this is all going down if you're not careful, in my opinion. Now, maybe we'll look back on this in 20 years and, oh, he was a kook. Or, oh, man, maybe he was right and we should have listened a little more and took it a little more seriously. Because I know a lot of you don't care about predator hunting, so you might not pay a lot of attention to this. But if you allow the predators to be a larger part of your ecosystem, you're the one that's going to get cut out. They're not. So be aware of it. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's good. What I was going to say is this playbook isn't new, right? This is like there's like a format to this. And it basically goes something like this. Introduction to take away some portion of hunting, usually involved the predator or a small season. And at large, those seasons are typically marketed as it's easy to put together an ad campaign to say, hey, let's get rid of predators. Predators, a lady was chased down a trail by a cougar, so there shouldn't be cougar hunting in this state. Or there shouldn't be some emotional story attached to it or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's relatively easy to make that emotional ad campaign or whatever. And then that thing gets taken away. It never comes back.
Never.
So whether it's a 5-day muzzleloader season or a 10-day season here or an opportunity to hunt game here, we don't want to lose any of that. None of it. Whether it's important to you or not, because when that thing goes away, it doesn't come back.
That's right.
Even when things get set like management objectives, like this grizzly thing has been a recent problem in the West where grizzly populations have been growing and growing. And Wyoming was 1 or 2 years ago tried to reintroduce like a 4-tag season. And they had already met their objectives, their management objectives, and they issued it, but then it was federally overruled because whatever their reasoning was. But just because there's some objective set down the road doesn't mean it's necessarily coming back either. So I just think as a whole, we don't want to lose any part of a right or season or weapon to hunt with or opportunity to hunt. We want all of those things to stay, because if they go away, it's very unlikely that it's ever coming back.
Yeah, we're heading down a very dark path and a very slippery slope. And, believe me, every time I see one of these things or look at one of these things, go, that's it, I'm moving.
Yeah.
But if you do that, you're just allowing them to continue to get away with it. You got to stand up for what you believe in and care about. It has to be important to you. And just because, I would still feel the same way if I had no interest in predator hunting. It's like I don't care. It's like, no, this is a path down the wrong road. And you have to stand up for it, even if you're not interested in it.
Yeah.
If you care at all about your future of being able to hunt.
Yeah, I don't feel any sort of gloom and doom about it, but it's a small thing that could turn into a big thing. And I just think as a whole, we don't want to...
Hold on a second. How do you not feel any sort of doom and gloom about it?
Well, because since I've been hunting,
yes,
I haven't seen seasons disappear. I haven't seen opportunity disappear. So I'm still faithful that we're not going to see those things get cut in areas that I've been affected by.
In this state? You haven't seen seasons change? You haven't seen opportunity disappear?
Well, I haven't. Got to keep in mind, I haven't been a hardcore Washington hunter. I've been typically hunting Idaho, typically hunting.
So one of the things that they have a tendency to do to try to make it look like they're not taking away time from you is they give you worse time.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, we're still giving you your 13 days of elk season. We've just moved it completely out of the rut. Right? So their goal is always to maintain a certain percentage of success. And if you get more skilled, then they have to make it harder some way or another. Our opportunity levels have gone down. Our success rate is not great. The state in general has gotten way worse. I've been hunting in this state since I was
you're far more
7 years old.
You're far more in tune than I am.
Way worse than it's ever been, and it's not even close. So, and that's largely coincided with during my teens, they outlawed methods of predator hunting, and the number of predators have grown and grown and grown and grown and grown.
Yeah.
It needs to be more of a doom and gloom in your head.
Yeah.
It has to. Because that same mentality is the same mentality average guy's going to take and go, oh, it's not. It's going to be okay. It'll be all right. No, it won't. You're going down a bad path, and we need to do something about it now, not later. I mean, do you really think that with the number of predators we have in this state, we would, if they were managed better, would we really need to be going to a draw statewide for elk?
Yeah, definitely not.
Like, why are we doing that?
Yeah.
Well, the logical reason to do that is because the numbers are lower. And we need to limit the number of people that can hunt or the number of animals that could be taken a year. What purpose would we have? Like, where are the numbers going down from? It's from freaking predators, dude.
Yeah, I agree. Washington as a whole is messed up, dude. We have so many units, so many management units, like the whole state's confusing.
Mm-hmm.
You have big bull units where people can go chase spike horns around. It's like our whole state's confusing.
Yeah.
It's difficult. And my blanket statement is basically, hey, I don't want to see anything disappear, go away.
Well, you are going to. And I honestly, as much as I don't want to be a negative Nancy, I don't think it's going to matter what we do. I think they're going to do what they want to do no matter what. And they don't care what we think.
Yeah.
They don't care if the majority of people don't want them to do it. They're still going to do it.
I think what we can do as people that talk publicly about hunting is just be good representatives and stewards of like what hunting is, what hunting looks like, what good people that do it look like. I mean, and speak as we can. Like, what else? What's the other course of action?
I don't know. I don't know if there is another course of action, but I get upset when I see what they're doing and the direction they're going, and you do feel helpless a bit. This has been my state my entire life. I've never moved. I've never left. I've spent 44 years here, and I've never wanted to leave more. Like, there's just so many things that I just don't agree with, and so many viewpoints that are so different than the people that live over here versus the people that live 5 hours away that tend to get to make all the decisions. I believe me, I'd love to see the state get cut in two.
Yeah.
I really would. And I don't care if their GDP is way bigger than ours. They spend 90% of the money over there anyway. Like, it's not going to hurt us. But I don't think you could get away with that either. I don't think you could, secede a section of our state into Idaho or create the 51st state or 52nd or whatever. I don't know, they count the little, republics and whatnot. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know another answer. I just know that I don't want to see my children and my grandchildren not have an opportunity to hunt. And it's just another step down that path of losing that opportunity. And so many people just don't care.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say they don't care. I mean, it's important that they understand, so they can act accordingly, right? Because a lot of these things get swept under in a way where there's not a lot of people who might have heard about it. I mean,
dude,
how do you hear about these things? You had to go out of your way to hear about it.
Somebody had to tell me about it.
And you're a
like,
large...
Why is this not out in the public?
Exactly, yeah. So
one might feel like they're just kind of trying to sneak it by. Ugh, it just makes me sick.
Yeah, it's a tough situation.
Yeah. I've had a hard time thinking about anything else since I found that.
Yeah. Yeah.
At what point do you just get really mad and say enough's enough? I don't know. I just, no one likes to feel like their way of life is being threatened, and mine more than most is being threatened by these things that they do. And it would be different if you could show me some science behind your decision making, but there isn't any. There isn't any science to support what you're thinking about doing. What you're thinking about doing is based on feelings. And we've been making way too many decisions as a society based off our feelings.
Yeah.
And not sensible scientific backgrounds.
That's a fact, Jack. I mean, I should have the data to back it up.
I should have been born 200 years ago. I just feel way out of place in all this stuff. I really do. It's just, you should have some real evidence to justify the decisions that you're making, not just, well, this is how we feel about it, so we're doing that.
Yeah.
It's hard to maintain faith in your system that you live under.
Well, I mean, when you employ a whole division of wildlife to manage and oversee the wildlife, how do people just get randomly appointed to a board? You know what I mean?
Well, that's the governor's right. It's the way our state's set up.
I understand, but it's
frustrating.
frustrating.
The state of Washington allows that now. I want to say, I don't think Montana's like that, and I don't think Idaho's like that. I don't think the governor just gets to decide who can make the decisions based off of fish and game. And I also don't think their fish and game funds go into the general fund, which ours do.
Well, course of action is sign up online and show up.
Sign up online and show up. It's really, really, really
And important. If we can find that link, we can pop it down below by our description.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah.
I know the...
can certainly link the original Go Hunt article.
The original article for sure. I have that on my phone, and I think there was a link in that too. So I'll try to find it.
Did you get the impression that the article was well written?
Yeah, it wasn't a huge article though. I mean, it was a quick read.
They do a good job on that kind of stuff.
They do.
It seems pretty fair.
Yeah, and I want to say it started off by saying your hunting rights in Washington are being threatened or something like that. In fact,
you got to have a good headline when it comes to media. I can pull it up real quick. Sure. We'll have that. We'll have it linked down below for sure.
Whereas I can read it real quick. Give me a second.
Can we look
before I send it to me? I got it right here. Here we go. Washington State's hunting is under attack and why you should pay attention. Was the article. We'll put this link in the bottom, so you can click on it and read it. And it was Go Hunt, and I'd like to thank Go Hunt for writing this article and bringing it to the attention of the public. A lot of over-the-counter opportunities. I'm trying to read if there's a link in here. Organizations like HOWL for Wildlife make it incredibly simple to stay up to date on issues here in Washington. So there's some things to sign up for in here that will make you more aware when things like this happen, that they'll alert you to it. But this, let's see, important links. Read, watch past meetings, and stay informed. There's a commission meetings link on here. Connect to the commission directly with your emails and notes supporting hunting and North American. Okay, so we'll link this article, and if you read this article at the bottom, there's multiple links for you to sign up for things, or simply reach out to the commission and I want to say the one on here to state that you would like an opportunity to speak. At that is in here too. So that is all in that article, and we will link this article to the end of this,
cool.
to the bottom of this. So, and I'll have Tim show me how to do that because I've never done that.
Nice.
So, please, people, help. At the end of the day, I'm still only one voice. He's still only one voice. And I just hope that you're listening and that maybe it makes an impression on you. And I don't know if this episode might be a little boring because it's all I can really think about in my head, and it's kind of got me down a little bit. But hopefully you do something.
Well, and the only thing I'll leave with is hunters are the minority, not the majority. So I think it's important that, as a small group of people, we can be good representatives that stick together.
Yeah, be sensible about it too. Don't just say you're all a bunch of freaking idiots, even if that's how you feel. Just, give some logic-based, responses if you're going to talk.
Yeah.
Don't look like a hick, even if we are hicks. Just, be logical with your responses, please.
Yeah. All right, you guys. We're going to sign off, and yeah. If you're hunting, hunt hard, and stand up for having these things. Keep them around, right?
Stand up for your rights, even if you don't care about the specific ones that you're about to lose.
Yeah.
Thank you.